Some numbers are just, well, numbers. But every now and then, you come across a number that tells a story. Today, we're decoding one of those, the number 77. And this one, it holds a powerful story of a divine flip, a complete reversal from ultimate revenge to ultimate forgiveness. It's pretty wild, so let's get into it. So here's the big question, right? How can one single number mean two things that are polar opposites, ultimate revenge and ultimate forgiveness? It seems impossible, but that's the puzzle we're going to put together today. And believe me, it's a story that stretches from the very first pages of the Bible all the way to the end. Okay, so before we can really tackle 77, we've got to start with its foundation, the number 7. And in the Bible, 7 is a big deal. It's not just a number you count with, it's a symbol. It basically screams divine perfection, wholeness, the idea that something is perfectly and totally complete because God did it. All right, so let's dig into this idea of perfection and the number 7. We're going to see how it pops up from the very beginning in creation to the very end in Revelation. And seriously, once you see this pattern, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Think about it. Right from page 1 of Genesis, you've got the 7 days of creation. Then there's the 7th day of rest, the Sabbath. You've got the 7 major feasts of the Lord. And then you jump all the way to the end of the Bible. And what do you find? 7 churches in Revelation. It's like this number is woven into the very fabric of the story, signaling that God's plan has order, purpose, and most importantly, completion. Okay, this next part is super interesting. We need to talk about a little quirk of the Hebrew language, repetition. See, for us, if we say something twice, it's just for emphasis, right? It's very, very hot. But in ancient Hebrew, it's so much more than that. It's like turning the volume up to 11. It takes an idea and amplifies it to its absolute, most intense meaning. Here's a perfect example. The prophet Isaiah doesn't just talk about peace. He says, shalom, shalom, literally, peace, peace. And how does that get translated? Not just as peace, but as perfect peace. See? The repetition totally cranks up the meaning. And this is the key. The exact same principle applies to numbers. So when you double a number, like 7, you're not just getting 14, you're getting completion magnified. Okay, so now that we've got all that background, 7 for completion and repetition for amplification, let's look at the first time 77 shows up. And let me tell you, it's chillin'. We're going way back to Genesis, to a really dark story of escalating violence. So here's the scene. You have this guy, Lamech, who's a descendant of Cain, the first murderer, and he's basically taking revenge and putting it on steroids. See, God had promised a 7-fold vengeance to protect Cain. Lamech hears that and basically says, oh yeah, well my vengeance will be 77-fold. He's not just one-upping God, he's declaring this horrifying idea of unlimited, perfected vengeance. It's revenge to the max. All right, now let's jump way forward in time. Centuries later, Jesus enters the picture, and he directly takes on this ancient, ugly idea of vengeance. And what's amazing is he uses Lamech's exact number to flip the whole thing on its head. It's absolutely brilliant. So Peter comes up to Jesus and asks this question, and you can almost hear him thinking he's being super spiritual, right? He says, Lord, how many times should I forgive someone? Like 7 times? He's using that number of divine completion, thinking he's being incredibly generous. But Jesus' answer must have just floored him. He says, not 7 times, but 77. He's not just giving a bigger number. He's grabbing that old symbol of perfected vengeance and totally redefining it as perfected forgiveness. And just look at this contrast. It's one of the most powerful reversals in the entire Bible. On one side, you have Lamech's 77 from Genesis. Unlimited vengeance, an endless cycle of escalating harm. And on the other, you have Jesus' 77 from Matthew, unlimited forgiveness, an escalation of mercy. He literally took a weapon and turned it into a healing balm. But wait, there's more. Seriously, the story of 77 isn't over. There's one more piece to this puzzle, and it's kind of hidden in plain sight in the Gospel of Luke. And when you see it, it ties everything we've been talking about together in this just breathtaking way. So what if this isn't just about literary devices? What if the number 77 was actually embedded into the very DNA of human history? To make a huge theological point. What if the story of redemption was written into the numbers all along? Well, check this out. If you go to the Gospel of Luke, you'll find this long, detailed genealogy of Jesus. And if you sit down and count the names, starting with Jesus and tracing the line all the way back to the very first man, Adam, guess how many generations there are? Yep, exactly 77. Now, for us, a genealogy is just a family tree, maybe something you look up online. But back then, oh, they were so much more. An ancient genealogy was a carefully crafted theological statement. Every detail, especially the number of generations, was put there on purpose to make a powerful point. So here's the beautiful payoff. That 77 generation lineage, it's a symbol. It's saying that Jesus is the perfect completion of God's entire plan to save humanity. Think about the journey of this number. It started as a symbol of perfect vengeance with Lamech. Then Jesus flipped it into a symbol of perfect forgiveness. And now we see it as a symbol of the perfect fulfillment of God's whole story of salvation. It's incredible. So what's the big takeaway here? What really matters? Well, first off, this isn't some weird numerology. The number 77 is a storytelling tool, and a brilliant one at that. It shows this amazing divine plan to completely replace our human tendency for limitless vengeance with God's limitless mercy. It's the story of how the ultimate expression of human brokenness, Lamech's boast, is completely and perfectly undone by the ultimate expression of God's grace in Jesus. And that leaves us with one final, pretty challenging thought. If this grand, sweeping story of the Bible is all about God transforming a pattern of vengeance into a pattern of forgiveness, well, what does that mean for us? Right here, right now. How are we being invited to be a part of that same story, to choose forgiveness over vengeance in our own lives, with our own families, and in our own communities?